word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
This is an SEC East game. It's the first step to Atlanta, and we need to do a good job of preparing right for the game. We talked about last year, winning on the road the first week, and the second week we didn't play very well.
With Auburn, this is a really good football team, complete football team, really looking at them, but it was one of the toughest teams we played all year.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Talking Tuesday from downtown Columbia. We come to you after a busy day of listening to people talk about their upcoming games. Will Muschamp at USC and Dabo Swinney at Clemson. Will Muschamp uttering the words, "First step to Atlanta," beginning with the Missouri game. Well, you know what? You win a game. You beat NC State. You do some good things. There's no reason not to feel confident about your team, even though you're going on the road to face a team that had a big offensive night against Missouri State last week. But this is a step up for – here's the thing. This is a step up for Missouri. I'm not so sure this is a step up for South Carolina. I mean, this is – they played a good team. This is not like they played an FCS opponent or a poor Power 5 opponent. They passed a big test. Missouri goes into this game still probably wondering exactly what they have.
They're wondering exactly what they have, but I don't think it's so ludicrous to talk about the fact that we're doing that they're making a step toward Atlanta, because from that perspective, you know, it's all about not knowing what we don't know as far as this goes, because in the eyes of the public, there are a lot different things that we saw over the course of this first week. We saw a Florida offense that was probably a lot more depleted than we thought it was. We saw Georgia's starting quarterback go down. We saw Tennessee struggle with Georgia Tech. We saw so many things during the opening week. You could make an argument that the most impressive team of the SEC East during week one was South Carolina. And conversely for Clemson, on their side of things, while they didn't get necessarily a big test against Kent State, they're probably the only ACC Atlantic team that you could say is still standing on not only both feet, but they'll get a big test this week against Auburn in order to prove themselves. So this is a landmark week for both of these programs.
You got to give Tennessee a little bit of a nod by the fact that they came from behind last night in the fourth quarter and pulled out that game. Boy, Georgia Tech, they had that triple option going, and it looked beautiful there for a while. They have got themselves a good young quarterback.
Well, you know, it's difficult to start off a season with a triple option team. You just can't duplicate that speed, no matter how many athletes you have on your scout team, as Tennessee probably has. But give Tennessee credit. They still have the quick strike, and that's what kept them in that football game. And again, you tell players late in the football game, you got control. First order of business, watch from behind. Somebody will poke that ball loose. And we've seen it time and again when guys have the games in their hands and lose a critical fumble at the exact wrong time.
And two missed field goals, or a blocked field goal and a shank field goal, and that fumble. And Georgia Tech's like, how in the world did we lose this game? All right, coming up on Sports Talk tonight. First, your phone calls. If you want to join us, we'll take your calls at 800-956-7266, 800-956-7266. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com. If you want to shoot us a Twitter comment at SportsTalkSC. Will Muschamp coming up. We'll hear from him, hear from Dabo Swinney, talking about their upcoming games. Rod Bramblett, play-by-play voice of the Auburn Tigers, with us in the second hour, along with KT, Kerry Tharp, as we wrap up a big Sunday at Darlington. We'll have some recruiting for you as well here on Sports Talk tonight, so we've got a lot of ground to cover. From Clemson today, I made the trip up the hill. Tigers are looking forward to Auburn. They respect Auburn in a big way. Remember, Auburn played Clemson to the wire last year at Auburn before the Clemson Tigers won. So they respect Auburn. And they feel like Auburn has a better quarterback situation than what they had last year, and a running game, you know, they rushed for 351 yards against Georgia Southern. They had 2 guys each rush for 136 yards, and that was without their best running back, Petway, who comes back this week after a 1-game suspension. He led the SEC in rushing last year at 125 yards a game. So Dabo Swinney expects, even though you're going to see the passing game some from Auburn, you're going to see a full dose of the running game, and this is going to be the big test for the Clemson defense, and we'll see just how good that defense is. And this is the kind of game, historically, where Brent Venables does his best job. Whenever he's facing an opponent with a good offense, like Georgia Tech with that triple option and some of the other offenses, he really prides himself on getting his defense extra ready. And you could tell it today at the press conference. He was a half hour late coming in to visit with us. He was, a lot of times he's in a joking mood and gives long-winded answers. Not today. He was very serious, didn't want to talk about Kent State at all. Somebody asked him about, gee, how did it feel to give up 1 passing yard? And he's like, I haven't even thought about that. Right. He is all on Auburn, yeah. And so this is when you see Venables and the Clemson defense at its best.
Go ahead.
No, I was about to say he's got to take that running game away, because Clemson still has shown, even when they have great defenses, they can be vulnerable right up the middle. And if that game stays close and you got that bowling ball Petway you sending into the middle again and again, and be stubborn with the run, it can be difficult for Clemson because you're keeping the offense off the field.
And I'm wondering, too, again, how much of a false sense of security. I know Brent Venables is not going to mire them into a false sense of security because of what happened last week. But I'm wondering, it's only human nature, human memory. They probably think a lot more highly of themselves on defense than they probably should, because they faced a team that basically rolled over and laid down.
Yeah, they had no intention of trying to throw the football in that game. Injury-wise, everything looked good. They think Van Smith will be okay. Banged up his knee a little bit last week, but he was okay in practice last night. And today in practice, they were hoping to get the word that Denzel Johnson's cleared to play. So from that standpoint, the Tigers look good. What about from USC?
It was interesting. We saw jovial. We saw a chipper Will Muschamp at USC. We saw some players who we hadn't really seen so far this year. We saw Keir Thomas. He was interesting to talk to. And I think the thing that was the biggest question for me, that not only did I ask about with Will Muschamp, but also with the players, is, did the defense answer the questions fully about the depth concerns? And I think they did to an extent, especially in the front seven, because you saw big plays from guys like Keir Thomas, Javon Kinlaw. We saw Eldridge Thompson step up at the linebacking position to spell Sky Moore and Bryce Nowell-Williams when he ended up going and playing playing at defensive end, rather. And we saw Sherrod Green. It's interesting when you look at the South Carolina team in the secondary, though. And we talked yesterday about the weak link involving Jamarcus King and how they will try to make up for that kind of weak link on their stature, because this is a Missouri team that they go into this week, Pro. They're going to need to be able to substitute in backup defensive ends, backup linebackers, backup secondary men. You do not want to be behind the 8 ball, especially with the way that this team goes tempo.
Yeah, the interesting thing is I think what's going to happen is Jamarcus King is a guy who in the first 3 or 4 games last year was their best defensive back. But for whatever reason, he did not turn his head in playing the football. It was almost like he was afraid if he turned, he would lose a step.
Right.
And so he didn't turn his head. But he was in position to make plays. He just didn't make them.
Exactly.
So we'll see how Muschamp works with him to try to correct that.
Was Muschamp asked directly about Jamarcus King today in his performance?
He was not. I wanted to,
yeah,
but he was not.
What kept you from asking?
I feel like it was asked and answered on Sunday's teleconference.
Oh, okay.
It was asked and answered.
Well, so as far as we know, Jamarcus King is still in there. I mean, look, if Jamias Williams has emerged, and I'm sure it's probably too soon, but I mean, you got a hot shot freshman corner that you could run out there at corner and give him a shot if you feel like he's going to do a better job. I tried asking the question nicely on Sunday. I feel like if I would ask the question sitting front and center on Tuesday, he might have came out from behind the table and tried to beat the heck out of me. Well, you'd have made national news.
Yeah, let's see it.
All right, we'll be back. 800-956-7266. We are back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic.
Yo.
Professor Tom Hayes. Special night here on Sports Talk. It is Jar Mart's last night. We'll talk about that later. I don't think any tissue is going to be involved here.
Wow.
I mean, I don't think that well, we hardly got to know him. I mean, he's just sort of – it's like just passing wind. He's just moving right through the door.
Has he been – he's been here almost less time than I have. I'm kidding.
Yeah, slightly. The revolving door of Sports Talk continues. Hopefully – it has now come to an end.
We didn't even get to give him his 5-year anniversary gift.
No, we'll give him his. How long were you here, Jar Mart? Year and.
I've been here since time itself was born,
Is
but no,
that
I've been
right?
here for a year and a couple months there.
It seems like 10 years, but yeah, it's only been a year.
It seemed longer.
Just seems like 10. Yeah. New rankings came out today. Alabama's #1 in both. Ohio State's #2 in both. Clemson's #3 in both. And Penn State is #4. They differ at 5 with Oklahoma by the AP. And in the coaches poll, it's Southern Cal. Rest of the AP top 10, Southern Cal, Washington, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Florida State drops to #10. Oklahoma State's 11, followed by LSU, Auburn, Stanford, and Georgia. Then it is Miami, Louisville, Virginia Tech, Kansas State, Washington State. South Florida's 21, and boy, that's a gift. They do not deserve to be in the top 25. Florida's at 22, and that's a gift. Yes. TCU 23, Notre Dame 24, and Tennessee is 25. And I think Georgia 15 is – you cannot rank a team 15 with a quarterback who's played a half or however much Jake Fromm played the other day. I'm sorry. We'll see how they live up to all this, but they're putting a lot of expectations. And same thing with Miami. Miami at 16. Of course, Clemson's #3, and they've got a new quarterback.
You see in the coaches poll, they still ranked NC State ahead of South Carolina
in the overall voting.
In the coaches poll voting, not in the.
That's
AP.
why I don't really mention the coaches poll, because who knows who's voting for the coaches? At least for the AP, we know who's voting.
It's the Amway coaches poll.
And the new rankings as far as the from Vegas, the new odds for winning the national championship. Clemson has moved from 28-1 to 20-1. Alabama moved from 12-5 to 13-5. Ohio State 13-2 to 6-1. USC stayed at 500-1. So Vegas not moved by the Gamecocks win. All right, let's move to your calls. 800-956-7266. If you'd like to join us on the program tonight. Love to hear from you for a little bit. Let's go to Joe in Cheraw for our first call. Joe, welcome into Sports Talk tonight. How are you?
Thanks, I'm fine. I've got a question about Saturday's game, USC. They said when Jake ran the football, the quarterback ran the football, said he was so smart and did this and that. Okay, well, listened to it on the radio, so I didn't see it all, but I got the impression that he ran the ball for the 13 yards to get the first down, and then he downed it to save himself, to not worry about getting the tackle, getting the knee hurt or something. And he did it real smart. Is that what happened, or did he run all he could to get that first down, and did he get hit?
Yes, what you just said. He actually took off, and it was an interesting way of running. He seemed to be kind of lowering his body as he was running forward, and got himself down kind of in a protective way. But he made sure he got the first down and stretched his body. He didn't go feet first. He went, kind of shoulder first, and he got enough to get the first down and made sure that he got what he needed to move the chains.
And an interesting thing is the fact that you look at a lot of those guys, when you slide feet first, they basically take your spot from when you start the slide. If you go head first, then it ends up going to where the ball is. So you actually can get some extra yardage, but you also expose yourself to being hit.
Yeah. And I thought that was the quickest way for him to get down, because remember, he was converged on by 3 guys, and he was able to duck under all 3 and not take that real kill shot that they tried to throw on him.
Absolutely. DeAndre Francois had his knee surgery today. They're calling it successful, out for the season.
Is it ever not successful?
Yeah, I think maybe not right when they do it, but sometimes those knee surgeries don't take, and they end up having to go back in to fix it. We go to let's go to Bulldog Bert in Greenwood for our next phone call. I'm sorry, in Saluda, not Greenwood, in Saluda. I'm sorry about that, Bert. I don't know why I had Greenwood on my mind, but welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing great, Phil. Glad to join y'all tonight after that Labor Day layover and some interesting games this weekend. Of course, Jake Fromm came in for Georgia and did an excellent job at scoring. I think that he is showing his ability. I think he was number 7 in the draft when he was recruited by Georgia, and I think that he lived up to his expectations. And I don't think we'll have any problems with Notre Dame because we're going to chub our way through it.
Really? You think you're just going to go up there and smack them around a little bit, huh?
Well, I do think it will be ground out on the ground, and I think that we will prevail, which I don't think Notre Dame's at their best either.
No.
They're way down, and I think that, we can sort of expect that Georgia will prevail because they were playing Appalachian State Saturday, and we put in our third string quarterback almost the whole fourth quarter. So, they were resting their players for the big game.
Now, Bulldog Bert, you got to watch out now because you got some leprechauns that you're going to have to throw some blocks on. I mean, there's something about those leprechauns and touchdown Jesus there. You got to watch out for.
When you play Notre Dame, you do play against a higher power, Bert.
Well, wait a minute now. Jesus for God, and Uga can handle a leprechaun. We'll have no problem chasing him around that field. And believe it or not, remember, who did we win the last time we won the national championship in 1980? Who was it we beat? Thank you very much.
I think that would be not the last. Wouldn't that be like the only time?
No, we won in 1942.
Well, we weren't counting back in 42.
That's when
Phil's the only one who was alive back then.
42, my goodness. Everybody was in everybody was in World War II. Yeah, the only people on your team were defectors or something. Come on.
Un-American.
Yeah.
It almost seems un-American to win the national championship that year.
Thank you, Bulldog. Good luck up there with the Fighting Irish. Weird things do happen to visitors up there at Notre Dame. You ever been to a game there before?
I've been to one game up there. I saw them play BYU, and it is an amazing atmosphere.
Let me mention this little recruiting note here off the top as well. Jimmy Nichols from Conway committed to Providence. He visited there over the weekend. He announced his commitment this evening on a local television station. I forgot that was coming down at 6 o'clock or thereabouts. So Jimmy Nichols, who did not have an official USC offer, he also had Miami on his list, but he went to Providence over the weekend and liked it and liked the coaching staff, and he has committed to Providence. To Glenn in North Charleston before the break. Hello, Glenn. Glenn, are you with us, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm glad that South Carolina got away with the win, and I'm glad they improved on the offense. Defense needs a lot of work, but I think they'll improve. But they was in there when they was there, especially that goal line stance. You can't take it away from them. They wanted to win that first game as a motivator, and I think they'll come back and win Missouri this time. I think they'll correct a lot of mistakes and make the adjustments when needed.
The biggest problem that they had in their game against NC State is a problem that they'll need to fix by the time they play Missouri, and that's getting off the field on third down. If you let Missouri stay around and stay on the field after making third down conversions, it's bad.
Well, let's come back and talk about the defensive coverage plans that Muschamp plans to employ against this wide open air attack now by Missouri, and how that might differ, if at all, from what we saw against NC State. That's coming up, and more of your calls, 800-956-7266. Be right back. We are back. It's Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Welcome in if you're just tuning over or you tuned over a little while ago. You're stuck in traffic. You're back at work. We were here last night. Where were you? And we're glad that you're with us as we come to you from Main Street in downtown Columbia, because we are the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina, from the coast to the upstate and points beyond.
I'm mad you're shaving your beard and your mustache, both.
I'm not even sure many people notice, but yeah,
it's on our Google. We have our Google Hangout, which you can check out at SportsTalkSC.com.
Well, the little chin stuff is gone. Mustache is coming off tomorrow. I don't think it looks. The mustache looks kind of like a porn thing. I don't think it's
a porn thing.
You know, I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Put some Grecian in it. Put some Grecian in it.
Well, no, I mean, it's dark. It's not gray. I do have color in the stash for some reason.
Okay,
but yeah, we're gonna get it clean. Gonna get it cleaned up.
And you're
tomorrow.
you're not gonna look like a hippie anymore with the hair.
Yeah,
anymore.
it's time.
No, that's Ben Franklin. That's Ben Franklin look.
It is. I looked. I was like, God, this has got to go.
I kind of like it.
Time to go.
I like it.
I was going to put it up in a bun, but that's just not me.
Oh, that'd be nice. You look like Noah Syndergaard if you did that.
Yeah, that's just
a man bun.
Not me. 800-956-7266 is the phone number, talking about USC and Mizzou, Clemson and Auburn. A little Georgia talk in there as well. 800-956-7266. Our email, talkback@sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. We've got some room and time for more of your phone calls. USC's Dabo Samuel named the SEC Special Teams Player of the Week.
Very nice.
For what he did. Ben Boulware, who was cut by the Panthers, has signed with the 49ers.
Very good.
This was according to Brent Venables, telling folks up at Clemson that. What else I want to mention to you? We'll give you high school rankings coming up a little bit later on. And when South Carolina plays Texas A&M in a couple of weeks, the Aggies will be without their starting quarterback, Nick Starkel.
Exactly.
He was hurt in their game the other night. Also, their nickel back, Donovan Wilson. They both had surgeries and will miss significant time. This is what Kevin Sumlin said on his radio show last night.
Also, another USC note involved with the game against Kentucky. The folks there have told us there are only 1,000 or around 1,000 as of this afternoon tickets remaining for the home opener against Kentucky. So, provided a good showing against Missouri, that could be a sellout at Williams-Brice.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will be. And the FCS poll that came out yesterday, Wofford was number 10, the Citadel 13, and Charleston Southern 18. James Madison, man, what a job Coach Houston is doing. You know, he was at the Citadel, and then he's at James Madison, won the national championship. They beat East Carolina this past Saturday, and now they're number 1 once again. North Dakota State is number 2, and Sam Houston State is number 3.
The Fighting Dukes of James Madison.
Very, very good. Very, very good coach. He won't be there too long. I mean, he went from Lenore-Rhine, where he had the number 1 rushing attack in Division II, to the Citadel, where he turned them around, and it's continuing. And now he went to James Madison and wins a national championship. Yeah, he won't be there for too long. Somebody big is going to grab him. And he's not the offensive guy. Brent Thompson was, the coach at the Citadel. It's really his offense. And Coach Houston, he does something else really good, whatever it happens to be. All right, 800-956-7266. Let's go to where we headed next?
Steve in Myrtle Beach.
Steve, how are you, sir? Welcome into Sports Talk.
Hey, I'm doing well. Just trying to, dodge the hurricane, I hope. But,
yeah, really.
Just quickly, had a really good weekend. South Carolina surprised me. I thought we were, going to be overmatched on the O-line, but again, to me, the offensive line looked really, really good. I know the rushing stats don't bear that out, but I just the way that they blocked, which I think will turn out to be still the one of the best D lines we play all year. And I'll hang up and listen to you, but I want to throw this in real quick. What really, you build the cake, you put the icing on it. What really put the final touches on my cake for the weekend was watching that coward Tom Herman lose to Maryland, and I just wonder now what he thinks about the rebuilding job he's got on his hand at Texas. Anyway, guys, I'm out. Take care.
Appreciate it.
Listen, I'm with you. Tom Herman, every loss that he gets at Texas, he deserves. Now, look,
Wow.
things are going to work out just fine for South Carolina because, sometimes you fall into something better than maybe what you originally had hoped for and had planned for. And I think Will Muschamp is going to work out just dandy at South Carolina.
The old Rolling Stones song, you don't get what you want, you get what you need. Oftentimes you get what you need.
And the thing about Herman is that his exit, I mean, there's never ever an exit that is a graceful exit when you're going from one job to another. But his exit from Houston to Texas, that chapped a lot of Houston fans very, very badly.
Mm-hmm.
There are not a lot of people who are happy about the way that he left there. And I think a lot of people, they might have lost a lot of goodwill in the city of Houston, and they have some. That's a town that's basically split and has gone back and forth between the Aggies and the Longhorns. Since the Aggies have joined the SEC, that's more of an SEC town. They lost a lot more goodwill by stealing Herman away from UT.
Yeah.
The way they did.
Well, we'll see what Wonder Boy can do there at Texas, because this is a situation. I equate Texas to Tennessee as one of those programs that fired a legendary coach maybe a little too soon after things started to wilt some, and instead of giving that coach a chance to fix it, they started fishing for the next guy, the flavor of the month. And ever since then, that both have been wandering through the woods. Now Tennessee's kind of, starting to think they are they're making their way out of it. We shall see. I mean, that was a nice win last night, but they had to battle against Georgia Tech, and as they move forward to play Florida and Alabama and the SEC schedule, it could be a little tough for them. Look, after 1 week and after seeing everything around the SEC East, South Carolina has no reason to feel like it has to take a back seat to anybody in the East.
He talked about the old line. I thought the compliment paid to the USC's offensive line was done by the NC State defense. Though effective, South Carolina figured, hey, these guys have to blitz to sack our quarterback. Well, that tells us our line must be doing the job against their front four.
Yeah.
When they started to blitz.
All right. Appreciate your phone call, 800-956-7266. So I've just what was the final score of the Michigan-Florida game? What did Michigan win by?
I had it here.
I think they won by
Did they
9, didn't
okay,
it? Was
so
32-23.
They covered, right?
Something like that.
Michigan covered?
Yeah, I think they
I want to make sure. I'm just sitting here figuring up the standings after week 1. What was somebody give me the quick spread on that game?
33-17 Michigan.
Okay, so they
wins.
covered. They
Yes.
covered. So, Corn off to a 4-1 start. Look at this. The Big Kahuna down in Charleston, 5 for 5 against the spread. He jumps to the lead. Pro, you were a paltry 2-3. Will, you sucked. You were 2-3.
Yeah.
Matt the Newsman 3-2. Kev Cohen 4-1.
Wait a minute.
Alan Bad Boy Smothers down in the Florence,
we're in the
Myrtle Beach area.
The cellar, you and
I don't.
You
I don't
really
get,
stink. You
I don't
were
get
1
any
and
bonus
4.
points for picking Denny Hamlin. I don't get
That's
any
what I
bonus.
said. Oh, you were saying that was a bonus point.
Sorry, it's not on the list.
Huh?
Did you pick Denny Hamlin?
Yes, I did.
You did.
Save it for next year.
Wow.
Oh, come on.
Quickly back to the phones we go before we hit the next break. And it is Mike and Dylan. I hate to take this call. Hello, Mike. You got to turn that radio down for me, bro. Mike.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead. Make it painless.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, I just wanted to call about the score of the bowl game from Dillon last night. That was a pretty good game the first half. Lada played pretty good, and they kind of holding their own there, and I don't know what happened to the second half by the left. But I just want to give a good congratulations to a friend of mine, Jamie Callahan from Dillon. He made the Mets roster. He got called up from AAA.
Well, very nice.
Yes, he did. I saw that. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to Dylan. It was a ball game until they took that touchdown off the board against Lada for a bad call. I mean, I'm sitting here, and I know it was a bad call because they were playing in Dillon, and Lada's going to get every bad call.
I feel bad that Jamie's now Met because hopefully he doesn't get hurt because that Met training staff has had everybody get hurt over them this season.
Enjoy a career of never winning, Jamie, but good luck to you.
Wow, that's really.
All right, we'll be back. Will Muschamp recruiting coming up. We are back, Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Will Muschamp in just a moment here on Sports Talk as we are coming to you courtesy of our good friends at South Carolina Electric Cooperative, your local electric cooperative, sponsors of the annual Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. To find out more about what co-ops are doing across the state, visit ecsc.org and save the date, December 9th, for the 2017 Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl down in Myrtle Beach at the beautifully refurbished Doug Shaw Memorial Stadium with a new press box and an elevator. 73 hardest steps in South Carolina to walk up in the old press box, but now we'll have an elevator. I can't wait. Will Muschamp elevating the Gamecock football program, he thinks, hoping to take them to new heights. SEC opener coming up this week at Missouri.
Interesting looking at this defensive effort against NC State. I know that I had some mixed thoughts about the defensive secondary. When asked about the minuses on the defensive side, here's what Will Muschamp assessed.
Well, I think we lost our eyes a couple times on some bootlegs in the game in both man and zone. The third and fourth down, one third down conversion and a fourth down conversion was just poor eyes on the ball of where we needed to be. They kept some drive alive. I mean, that was the issue in the first half. You know, you talk in terms of snaps. You don't get off the field on third down, you're going to have snaps. We didn't give up a lot of explosive plays, but they were able to manage for manageable third down and distances, and then we weren't able to get off the field, and we obviously had a fourth down conversion as well. So I think that those were things to me that we had to tighten some things up coverage-wise that I feel like we did a better job of in the second half. But we rushed forward better, but we also – there weren't as many timing throws because it was longer down and distances on third down. So when you're battling the first third down was 3rd and 10. I think the second third down was 3rd and 9. In both of those situations, the quarterback's going to hold the ball longer because the pattern distribution is going to be further down the field. So we're able to create 2 sacks in that situation. One was with a 3-man rush. So I think that helped us a little bit. We need to play the ball better in some situations down the field. When you're working yourself in phase on a receiver, you need to be able to play the ball. When you're able to work a back shoulder plays, we cause you play out of phase and play through the hands and shoulder of the receiver in those situations, because it's hard to play the ball and look for it when they're throwing a back shoulder fade behind your neck. So those are some things that we always work on, because as much bump and run as we play, we're in those situations a lot. So we've got to be able to play the ball better in those situations. And we had a couple communication errors late in the game, critical situations that did not hurt us that certainly could have.
Will Muschamp earlier today talking to the assembled media. Interesting on that poll we ran yesterday, Corn, are you a fan of neutral site games? We got almost 800 votes on our Twitter at SportsTalkSC, and the poll came out dead even, 50-50. 50% like them, 50% are not fans of them.
We also have a new poll on our website, sportstalksc.com, our poll question of the week. What happens this Saturday? Clemson wins, which means USC doesn't, or USC wins, which means Clemson doesn't, or both win, or both lose.
I think both win. I really do.
That's a legitimate answer. Right now, 49.5% believe USC wins, Clemson doesn't.
Really?
30.69% believe both win. 14.8% say the Tigers win, the Gamecocks don't. And 4.9% say both will lose.
I don't think both will lose.
No, I don't think so. I think there's a good chance both will win. We'll give you
two.
Oh, by the way, Mr. Stupid.
Your math is not your best subject, Corn.
Mr. Stupid had it wrong on Tennessee, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech was getting 3.
Yes.
So Georgia Tech gets the betting win there.
When Paul Johnson went for 2, I literally jumped for joy because I knew there's no way I'm going to lose.
So Will ends up 3-2.
So I'm over 500.
I end up 3-2.
Say you're sorry.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Well, I said I'm Mr. Stupid. Pro, you fall to 1-4. Good start. Alan Smothers, I apologize to you. You're not as lame as I thought. You're 2-3. Bobby Harton, Mr. the Big Kahuna, you're not as smart as I thought. You're 4-1.
So we're only one game out of the first.
Kev Cohen, now you're 3-2. And Matt the Newsman is 2-3.
So now, if you and
that's how it went down.
If you and I wouldn't have gone and done all stupid and picked against Alabama, you and I would be tied for first.
I'm never picking against Alabama again.
Ever again.
Now
I'll pick against them.
Now to Dabo Swinney, talking about Auburn today at his press conference. Here is his breakdown of those Tigers.
Big challenge with Auburn. This is a really good football team, complete football team. Really looking at them last year at this time, they were trying to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, and took them a little while there to kind of get settled in, and went on to have a heck of a year. But was one of the toughest teams we played all year, and this year got a bunch of guys back, a lot of experience, a lot of starters on all sides. Got a great kicker in Carlson kid. So really, really good football team. Now they got a quarterback that's got a lot of confidence and good experience and poise, and understands what they're doing. So big challenge for us when we're looking forward to, and looking at what they do offensively. They hit some big plays last week. They showed their strength in the physical run game. Ran a lot of the wildcat and zone read and their counters and powers and load schemes, jet sweeps. 21 is a great back. He made some big plays in the game. 36 obviously didn't play last week, but he led the SEC in rushing per game last year. Big, strong, physical guy. So that's where it starts. Is being able to match up from a physical standpoint against a really strong football team, and then win those matchups when the ball goes in the air, because they got a quarterback that definitely can make plays for them. Very skilled outside, very good and experienced up front, and again, just a very explosive offense in this first game. So big challenge there. And then looking at their defense, this is a very good defense. They were very good last year. I think they finished maybe 7th in the country in scoring, I think. But a bunch of those guys are back. Very deep in the defensive line, deep, long, athletic, physical guys up front, a bunch of guys back at backer and in the secondary. So again, just a very experienced group, understand their scheme, play hard, well coached. And, looking at last year, it was a very, very competitive game, and expect the same this year. So excited about competing against a great opponent in Auburn, and really looking forward to a night game in the Valley. I know we'll have a great crowd, and it'll be a lot of fun to get out there under the lights and play this one at home.
All right, Dabo Swinney from earlier today. We'll hear more from Swinney and Muschamp coming up here on the program. While I've got time, let me squeeze in the recruiting report before the top of the hour. USC remains involved with defensive back Jermaine McMillan of Miami, and he's looking at visiting USC officially for the Arkansas weekend, October 7th. He is also looking to visit Ole Miss when the Rebels play Arkansas in October. Also planning to visit Mississippi State and possibly South Florida and Central Florida. Basketball, 6'7" Jimmy Nichols of Conway committed to Providence tonight. 6'7" Hunter Tyson of Monroe, North Carolina is going to be
I do, because of the experience at quarterback. I've always felt like that was an important factor on going on the road, is having that. I do, because of the experience at quarterback. I've always felt like that was an important factor on going on the road, is having that position be a calming factor for your team.
We've got some similarities. We both, I think, want to run the football at the core. I think that's clear in their presentation of what they do, and it's what we want to do. We want to be able to run the ball.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblue,
Halo
Will
School Board,
Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
We continue. Sports Talk here on a Talking Tuesday from downtown Columbia. Welcome into Sports Talk, your most important 2 hours of the night. South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show, most talked about sports talk show, most discussed sports talk show. And when I'm talking, South Carolina's most handsome sports talk show. If a sports talk show can be handsome.
Before or after the razor?
Before and after. Goes both ways, as far as I see it.
I think we need to do a redo on the poll of the best looking
I don't
radio
think
people
so.
in the state.
Listen, your predecessor, bless his heart, always thought he was the best look. He thought he was the chick magnet for the show. But I had news for him, and I got news for you.
I understand.
We know who the women tune in to hear.
I understand how you feel.
We know who has the sexy voice.
You're wrong, but I understand how you feel.
Stockton like that. He knows who's got the sexy voice over here. That's right. Kind of like it's sort of like Wayne. It's sort of like the Wayne Newton attraction, if you know what Wayne Newton used to be able to do.
I know what Wayne Newton used to be able to do. He can't do much now because he's still doing shows in Vegas. I was just there. It wasn't good. They're giving away tickets to that show.
All right, 800-956-7266. If you want to join in here on Sports Talk, we're going to hear more from the coaches in just a moment. But I want to give you the high school football report. for tonight, brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. With new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau, you could be saving a whole lot of money. Even if you've received a quote before, rates are now more competitive than ever. Get a no-obligation quote today at faverates.com. That's F-A-V-E, rates.com. And we have the new rankings for the week. Of course, the games for last week didn't end till last night, and so the rankings coming out today are brand new. And here are your classes from the High School Sports Report. In 5A, number 1 now is Fort Dorchester, followed by Burns, T.L. Hanna, Dutch Fork, Conway. 6 is Sumter, followed by Greenwood, Spring Valley, Gaffney, and Boiling Springs. In 4A, South Point's number 1, followed by Hartsville, North Myrtle Beach, Belton Honeypath, and North Augusta. Then it is Greenville, Eastside, Berkeley, Ridgeview, and Greer. 3A, Chapman is number 1, followed by Dillon, Newberry, Broome, and Gilbert. Then it's Palmetto, Crescent, Strom Thurmond, Fairfield Central, and Brooklyn Casey. In 2A, Abbeville is number 1, followed by Carvers Bay, Barnwell, Bamberg Earhart, and Andrews. Then it's Lee Central, Saluda, Sherrod, Chesterfield, and Gray Collegiate. And South Carolina's team, Latta, is 14th this week. You know, some teams call themselves America's team, and Latta is South Carolina's team.
Is that a fact?
And in 1A, it's Lamar, number 1, followed by Hemingway, St. John's, Wagner, Sally, and Lakeview. And then it's Baptist Hill, Cross, Williston, Elko, Louisville, and Hannah-Pamplico in your top 10. There you go with the high school report tonight, brought to you by our good friends at Farm Bureau Insurance. All right, now back to the Talking Tuesday with Will Muschamp and Dabo Swinney. We heard from Swinney talking about Auburn, his overview of Auburn. Much like Clemson, Auburn had a walkover against Georgia Southern, which ordinarily, you know, even though they've moved up, they're still a pretty good program, but they ran for 351 yards, had 2 guys with 136 yards each. The quarterback was sharp in his first outing with Auburn, so that has to give you something else to think about. And the defense looked very, very good. At his press conference today, really, you know, Dabo looks at Auburn and sees a lot of Auburn in his own team.
You know, we've got some similarities. You know, we both, I think, want to run the football at the core. I think that's clear in their presentation of what they do, and it's what we want to do. We want to be able to run the ball. We've probably thrown the ball a little bit more over the years than maybe they have, but you know, I think at the end of the day, we both want to attack the perimeter. We want to attack downfield, and we want to have a physical run game that from a spread type set. So very similar, and then defensively very aggressive. You know, pressure and you know, believe in building the team from the inside out with the guys in the trenches. So. Recruit a lot of the same players, and definitely got a lot of respect. Great program.
Last year's game, playing it early on, kind of helped to set a tone for this team as they play some tougher games as they go along.
Well, I mean, you know, I think it was we didn't play very well last year in this game offensively, especially. We hit some plays and did enough to win, but we missed a lot of opportunities, and I give them credit for that. But had several drop balls but you know, I think it certainly created momentum, just like any opener that you get. You know, when you win your first game, it just gives you good momentum to build into your season, regardless of whether you beat Auburn or whoever. You always want to get off to a good start, but. You know, at the end of the day, it's every week is a challenge. Every week is a season of its own, and that's how we look at it. We don't make it any less or any more than that. We just go and put everything we got into getting ready for that team, and go put our best foot forward, and then grow from there.
All right, Dabo Swinney. Last year in that win at Auburn, the Tigers had 399 yards, but they held Auburn to only 262. But this is a much better Auburn offense compared to last year.
It is. Will Muschamp's USC Gamecocks taking on the I guess, third set of Tigers we get to talk about this week.
Yeah.
We talk about Clemson Tigers, Auburn Tigers, and Missouri Tigers. And winning on the road, obviously, is something that you need to be experienced enough to do. Will Muschamp thinks that having a quarterback with another year under his belt is a big part of that.
I do, because of the experience at quarterback. I've always felt like that was an important factor on going on the road, is having that position be a calming factor for your team. So I certainly feel more comfortable there. But I do feel like, defensively, we do have some experienced guys that have been on the road that, understand the importance of, this is an SEC East game. It's the first step to Atlanta, and we need to do a good job of preparing right for the game. We talked about last year, winning on the road the first week, and the second week we didn't play very well. So that's something, I've talked to our team about today.
How many similarities do you see in Drew Lock's game, Jake Bentley's game, being them? They're two very young quarterbacks in the same league.
Well, again, they throw the ball extremely well. Both guys can make all the throws, as the touch throw, the long throws, obviously directing their offense at a high level. Certainly both guys are capable and have done it. So there's a lot of similarities as far as those things are concerned, and throwing the football and taking the ball to the right spots. There's no question.
Chip.
Will, the offensive line played really well the other night. How much did you guys need to see that from a confidence standpoint for the offense?
Well, I think anytime, as I said after the game, as a football team, when you work extremely hard at something, you need to have some sort of return eventually. And the way you have a return in our profession's winning. And so obviously winning's important, but then to be able to go back and know that you blocked good people pretty well for most of the day, certainly gains you confidence as a player.
The four teams that have our attention this week, the team that passed its biggest test is South Carolina, and the team that played the best team last week was South Carolina, and they acquitted themselves very well against a defense that might be one of the best they see.
Well, the key thing is most people will tell you, or a lot of coaches will tell you, what stat do you look at first? I want to see turnovers.
Right.
That's a very important part of the game. But I think in a game like the offense that Missouri has, time of possession has to be premium in this one, because NC State almost held it a full quarter more than South Carolina did in the last football game. You can't do that against an offense like Mizzou, which when they get in a rhythm, they can destroy you. But the key point, I think, is they got to get the running game going so they can have time of possession, sustained drives, and make sure that Locke does not get into a rhythm getting the football, many times in this football.
I got to think that Travaris Robinson and Muschamp, they're going to mix things up on defense this time. They cannot stay with that soft secondary against Missouri like they did against NC State and expect to win, unless they think they're going to win like 55-48 or something like that.
They can't get vulnerable deep, though. Missouri throws a deep ball about as good as anybody does.
But do they block well? Can they bring pressure, and can they get to the quarterback?
That's the key.
That is the question. When we come back, more on Auburn with the voice of the Tigers here on Sports Talk.
Welcome back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Will Pelagic, Phil Kornblut, Professor Tom Hayes, and you listening across the state of South Carolina. We look towards Clemson and Auburn this upcoming weekend in Death Valley, the rematch from last year, Clemson and Auburn. The voice of the Auburn Tigers joins us now on our hotline. That's Rod Bramblett joining us, courtesy, of course, of our hotline. Thank you, Rod. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
You bet. My pleasure.
This Auburn team, Dabo Swinney says, reminds him a lot of his team. How do you feel that this Auburn team resembles this Clemson team?
Well, it's funny. Coach Malzahn and I were talking about this after the game Saturday night, and I said, boy, you look at these two teams, and they seem an awful lot alike. I mean, the two defenses that I think have a chance to be really, really, really good, and two teams with a new quarterback. Two new, very talented quarterbacks. And I think offensively, philosophy-wise, they're very similar. So, boy, you look at the strengths, you look at the weaknesses, you look at the matchups, and they sure do look an awful lot alike. And it's, it's one of those, I love these games like this early in the season, particularly when you have two teams that have playoff hopes. I mean, this is the type of game that you really find out where you are as a team. And, win or lose, you still have all your goals out there in front of you from a conference championship standpoint. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
The reason I like Gus Malzahn, I think that he doesn't necessarily like to stick to one style. He kind of adapts to the personnel that he has. How has he done that with new quarterback Jarrett Stidham?
Well, he brought in new offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey, who is the play caller. Not that Gus Malzahn's not involved in the game plan every week from an offensive standpoint, but it's Chip Lindsey's baby, and he completely trusts Chip Lindsey. He and Chip worked previously here at Auburn for a little while, and Chip Lindsey brings a little different aspect to that hurry up, no huddle in terms of the passing game. He is much more the run pass option guy. He's the RPO expert, and it brings more of a threat in the passing game, I think, than Auburn's had in a good long while. Auburn is not getting away from its power running attack. That's how Auburn wins championships under Gus Malzahn. I mean, that's just how they've done it. But here in the last year or two, they've lacked that quarterback that can really beat you with his arm when needed. And I think Auburn has that now in Jarrett Stidham. And they have that now from a philosophy standpoint, Chip Lindsey. I think Auburn will be much more balanced in their offensive attack the remainder of the year. They certainly were Saturday night until things kind of got out of hand a little bit. But I just think there's that. It's something else for defenses to have to worry about. They can't necessarily sell out to stop the run because Jarrett Stidham now is back there at quarterback, and I think Auburn's got a pretty good core of wide receivers too.
And running backs, visiting with Rod Bramblett, voice of the Auburn Tigers. So, I mean, you guys had 350 yards rushing against Georgia Southern last weekend, and that's without Cameron Petway. You get him back. Does he automatically go back in as the starter? How will that work at the running back spot?
That's a good question. I think so. I think he'll be right back out there as starting running back. Although I guess, someone like a Cam Martin could get the start on the first play from scrimmage. If that happens, I don't think folks will have to wait too long before they see Cameron Petway out there. And, this is an interesting test for Cameron Petway. He did not play against Clemson last year.
Mm-hmm.
And, it took him 2 or 3 games I think for the coaches to really trust him and his ability. And once they did, he was one of the best running backs in the country. He's a power runner, but when he gets in the open field, he has some speed to him as well. So, yeah, I think he will be in the starting lineup Saturday night. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. But Auburn has some depth at that position, even without Kerryon Johnson. They've got 2 or 3 other guys waiting in the wings that can certainly provide some relief.
How do Clemson kind of touts its defensive line as the best in the country, and maybe deservedly so. How do you like the matchup of your offensive line, your top 5 offensive linemen against their top 4 or 5 defensive guys up front?
I think that's another strength versus strength. I'm not saying offensive line is Auburn's number 1 strength, but it's right up there. I mean, it's an older group, with the exception of left tackle Prince Tego Wanogo. He's the new kid on the block, but he really had a nice debut Saturday night against Georgia Southern. But when you have Austin Golson in the middle, Braden Smith and Darius James on the right side, Mike Horton at left guard, I mean, there are a lot of snaps and a lot of experience. There's a lot of that there with that offensive front. So that will be one of those matchups, because I was on a show earlier today in the Huntsville market here in the state, and we were just talking about how you look at the AP top 25, actually the AP, let's just say the top 10, 15, and you just go down the list. How many of those can you go, all right, offensive line or defensive line, it's just okay. Not many. I mean, you look up and down the top 10, 15, everyone's got a good offensive line. Everyone has a very, very good and athletic and quick defensive front. It's just, you just have to have that in this day and age to compete for championships. I don't think I say in this day and age, guys, but it's really never changed. I mean, it's old as football. And I'd say the matchup in the trenches on both sides. I mean, you flip it over to Clemson's offensive line against Auburn's defensive line, which is 8, 9, 10 deep. That's where I think the game's decided. Will the 2 quarterbacks have time to make plays? Will all be determined across that front line.
And you mentioned with or without Kerryon Johnson, had the hamstring injury the other day, missed some practice time this week already. What's your expectation for him to be able to play?
There's nothing official been announced, so I hesitate to say, but, considering the depth Auburn has at tailback, yes, Gus Malzahn said today they are hopeful to get him back. But I would not be surprised at all if he did not play. He's doing everything he can to get back, but, without Kerryon Johnson, if Auburn has to go that route, you have Cam Martin, who had 136 yards Saturday night. You got a couple of younger guys, and Malik Miller and a freshman and Devin Barrett behind him. So, as far as likelihood of Kerryon Johnson playing Saturday night, it's a wait and see. But anybody who follows the game of football and running backs and hamstring injuries know that sometimes those can take a little while to come back from.
Well, what about
assuming it is a hamstring injury, which Coach Malzahn wouldn't confirm today, actually.
All right.
Well, the interesting thing is, let's talk about the players off the field. Kevin Steele from Dillon returns to Clemson, where he was let go. Can you feel any more intensity in a guy who's always intense anyway with this game coming up?
I tell you, I'm not sure you can get more intense. I've been really, really impressed with Kevin Steele. First time I ever sat down and talked to him after he was hired, I was like, geez, this guy scares me a little bit. Holy cow.
Yeah.
But and I think it's big that he's here for a second year. I mean, Auburn's been through, I think, 4 defensive coordinators in the last 5 years. So the fact that they're able to continue with some consistency there, it's a case of, this defense should actually, I think, by the end of the year will be better than last year's. So Kevin Steele's a great defensive coordinator. I love his intensity, and I think he's a perfect fit with Gus Malzahn.
Rod Bramblett, voice of the Auburn Tigers. We'll look forward to it. We always love hearing from you, one of the best in the business. Thanks so much for the visit.
You bet, guys. Take care.
That's Rod Bramblett joining us here on Sports Talk, covering the Auburn Tigers. And much like what South Carolina and Auburn are, the Clemson Tigers and the Auburn Tigers very much mirror images of each other. It's kind of it's kind of both teams looking at each other in the mirror.
Well, the schools are practically identical as well. They have a very entrenched history with one another. We'll be right back.
rap is a great way to engage students.
All right, back with you on Sports Talk as we head over to Darlington. I think the last RV has left the grounds. The gates are finally locked. Peace and quiet have returned to the PD as we welcome the president of Darlington, Kerry Tharp. Congratulations to you and your people, man. It was, it's an event. The tracks that get one race a year, you've got all year to plan and that one weekend to put all your energies and effort into it. And, man, it could not have come off more perfectly.
Well, Phil, I appreciate that a lot, and you're exactly right. We had that one weekend to shine, and, the other 362 days, we pretty much spend all that time investing in those 3 days to make sure it goes as well as possible. And certainly we were pleased with how things turned out. We had a great crowd, I thought, on Sunday night. The grandstands looked good. We had exciting racing both days of the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, and it seemed like a lot of energy. It just felt like a big event, and that's what you want to have when we had that weekend. We want to feel like a big-time event, and we certainly thought that it did. And, it was I thought it was very well received by our fans.
All right, so do you think Denny Hamlin would have caught and passed Martin Truex if Martin hadn't had the tire trouble?
Boy, I would have loved to have seen that, Phil. I was talking to somebody earlier today about that very subject because he was coming like gangbusters, and he had better tires than Truex did, and that certainly showed when Truex had that tire go down with about 3 laps to go. And so I think we could have been looking at a classic finish, maybe like Ricky Craven, Kurt Busch from a few years back.
Wow.
If that had not happened. But, you know, it was, you know, Hamlin had a great car. So did Truex. Hamlin made that miscue on pit road, and I really thought that was going to cost him the race at the time. But, you know, he got some late tires. He listened to his crew chief, Mike Wheeler, and I think he kept him calm. And like Denny said after the race, he drove his tail off.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it looked like Truex had it. And that tire goes down. He slaps the wall, and, you know, all bets are off. And so Hamlin took advantage of the opportunity. But you're right. I would have very much liked to have seen that fight to the finish there. I think it might have been a standoff. I tell you, I think it would have been a heck of a finish.
Oh yeah.
You know, KT, on the subject of the tires, I think one of the things that people were looking at was the fact that, you know, with the new pavement and the tires, those are kind of like oil and water. How do you think y'all's pavement stood up to what the tires brought?
Well, I tell you, I think there was a lot of fall off, Will. I really do. It just, every time you were listening to something on the radio or picking up bits and pieces on social media, it was about the tire fall off. And, you know, that's what happened with Truex. His tires just gave out. And Denny Hamlin, you know, when you stop and think about it, his mess up on pit road might have won him the race because he was able to go in later, a little bit later, and get tires. And so his tires were a little fresher than the ones that Truex had. And so, you know, be that as it may. But, yeah, I thought the tire fall-off was great. You know, Goodyear does a great job. It's not an easy job to do what they try to do. They have to make a safe tire and a competitive tire. I think they really, you know, were able to glean a lot from that tire test they had here in July. And, you know, they only had 13 sets of tires. And somebody might say, well, that's a lot of sets. But if you're averaging 11, 12 cautions, you know, per race, then that's not too many tires to go around. So I thought the tire fall off was excellent, and you know, it was really kind of who managed your tires the best.
Also, a good lesson for everybody out there when you're watching a NASCAR race or any race, and that is never give up on the race. I saw some people with about 10, 15 laps to go starting to hit the X's because it looked like Truex was just going to roll home to a victory. And, you know, lo and behold, everything changed with 3 laps to go.
No question. I've seen it happen before. I've seen it happen in Charlotte several times with, you know, guys running out of gas. I remember one time Dale Jr. looked like he had the Coke 600 in hand, and about, I think it was on the white flag lap, he ran out of gas. And so, you know, you just never know what's going to happen on that last lap and the last couple of laps. And certainly it goes to show you just how tough it is to win at Darlington. And like you said, nothing's a given in the racetrack. I mean, you look at things that happen over the last several laps of a race, and it's just, you know, anything can happen. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but this time it certainly did.
Well, one thing that never happened, and you just mentioned him, Dale Jr., his last race at Darlington, hard to believe, in 22 Cup starts, he never won. Never won on the lower circuit. I mean, he won his entire career, and this is one of his favorite tracks, of course, for emotional reasons, historical reasons, and, of course, his dad was so great there. Just hard to believe that he went his entire career and never won there.
Well, it really is, and you know, I know he wanted to win here very, very badly, you know, and to try to get into the playoffs, and certainly he's got a strong affection for Darlington. I think he always will, and we're appreciative of that. You know, it just wasn't meant to be, and you know, I'm sure it's not been the season that they would have liked to have had. And you know, he's got one last chance at Richmond to try to salvage a playoff spot, and he's won there before, so you know, it's not out of the realm of the possibility. But I know he would have liked to win at Darlington, but you know, he's got one race to get into the playoffs. I guess we'll just have to see what happens this weekend at Richmond.
Well, Hamlin winning, and I think he won it, in 2011, 2010. Is that the first repeat winner in about 10 or 11 years? Is it good to finally see a repeat winner and maybe build up some gusto for guys trying to get to a guy who's won more than twice in 10 years.
Right, and it's a great point, Professor. I think Hamlin and Jimmy Johnson are the only active drivers that have won at least twice at Darlington. Everybody else has won just once that's currently driving. So I think he becomes the first, two-time winner other than Johnson to win at Darlington. And so, it's a tough place to win. There's no question about it. I think it's a difficult racetrack. I was listening to some interviews that Hamlin did today, this morning on one of the NASCAR channels. He said, this is the hardest racetrack that we drive. He said, that track is so gritty and it's so sand based. He said, my throttle box was just full of sand by the end of the race. And he said, it's just no point for you to win at Darlington. And you really, when you stop and think about it, you look back over the years, and my time is very limited, but you look back over the years, and I really can't think of a time that there was maybe a fluke, a winner, to be honest with you. And so I think that's just the testament of the strength of the track and the competition that it provides to the drivers.
Maybe David Reagan a few years ago, but other than that.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Regan Smith. Actually,
I'm sorry, Regan Smith. My bad.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember the circumstances of that. That could have been maybe a pit strategy or maybe a fuel deal that he got out there and won that race. That is the only time that I can possibly remember where, something out of the ordinary happened. I mean, you look back at the winners over the years. You got Harvick, you got Johnson, you got Denny Hamlin, you got Carl Edwards. You got Truex, of late. Greg Biffle won a couple back in the day. Jeff Gordon certainly did, and so forth. But it's not an easy place to win. It's not an easy place to repeat. I'm sure Truex thought he was going to repeat, but it wasn't meant to be.
Well, I tell you what, the place looked great. Everything you guys have done to continue to dress it up and modernize it and make it comfortable without losing the old time feel. It was positive, and we congratulate you guys once again and look forward to talking with you the rest of the way as we go to the playoffs. By the time we meet with you next week, it'll be playoff time.
Exactly, Phil. I can't thank you the support that you all give us each and every week, statewide network. It's as good as it gets, and we thank you very much.
All right, KT. Thank you, my man. Kerry Tharp, president of Darlington. Another very successful weekend from the very beginning. The weather was great. The flyover was massive,
and the throwback paint schemes really popped on the television, man.
And I tell you what, Richard Petty driving one of the old number 43 cars that he drove in his career to lead him around.
Pace car.
What a great touch. Well, he wasn't the pace car, but it was just one of the cars out there, one of the nostalgic cars out front. Very, very classy. Back in a moment.
We out.
Thanks again to Kerry Tharp joining us here on Sports Talk. Okay, we have got time for your calls if you'd like to join us here on the program. What do you think about this week? If you're a Clemson fan, this is the big test. This is going to tell you a lot about where your team is headed this season, I think. I mean, in terms of the ACC, no. Lose, it's not going to damage you there. Win, of course, is going to keep you in the top 3 nationally. We do have Oklahoma, Ohio State playing this week.
That's basically an elimination game from the college football playoff.
Do you don't think either one can recover in time down the road?
I mean, you think about what Michigan could do to Ohio State. You think about what that Big 12 schedule is like for Oklahoma. I think the double round robin effect of the Big 12, it makes it very, very hard for you to overcome anything in the non-conference. And I think, too, the Big Ten, there's stumbling blocks for Ohio State involved there.
And the Big 12 championship game means that you'll have to probably beat a team twice.
And that's the other thing. I do not understand why the Big 12 decided to reinstitute a championship game when they basically have a de facto champion because everybody plays everybody. And I know they want to be they want to exist on that weekend, on that championship weekend. Right. It provides absolutely no advantage whatsoever.
That's called greed.
It's not about greed.
How much money do they make from that championship game?
I know that they will make money from that championship game, but they will not do themselves any goodwill in terms of trying to get their school into the college football playoff.
They do run the risk of losing a bunch of money by not getting into the playoffs if the team that wins that championship game is not a team that's locked in. Of course, they've had teams lose in that championship game or not even make the championship game and still make the college football playoff. But I think the loser of Oklahoma, Ohio State, I still think there's a chance for them to be back in the conversation by November if they take care of their business the rest of the way. Just like the loser of Clemson on Auburn will have a chance to get back in the conversation if they take care of their business the rest of the way.
I think Clemson's in better shape than Auburn would be.
Because of the league?
Because of the league, because of where they sit in the league.
Look who Clemson still has left to play on the road. They still have to go to Louisville.
Right.
They still have to go to Virginia Tech. And Virginia Tech looks pretty good.
Virginia Tech's all right.
Look okay.
All right.
There'll be
right.
a test.
It's a tough game.
Anytime at Lane Stadium is a test.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you still have now Florida State's a wounded animal, but by the time they play Florida State, that freshman quarterback, if he's still in there, will be a sophomore quarterback, more or less, based on the amount of work he's got.
Yeah.
And you know what? Georgia Tech, that offense with that quarterback, of course, now Venables has had the secret to Georgia Tech for the most part in the last 3 or 4 years. He's done a really nice job of having his guys, except for the game in Atlanta when, of course, Watson got hurt and you had the picks turned into touchdowns.
The thing that Clemson does well on defense is that they have a front seven that is very great on keeping contained and knowing how to pursue. And I think from that perspective, you look at that defense and say that that's a matchup nightmare for a team like Georgia Tech that thrives on teams not being able to stay on schedule.
Well, what happens is Clemson loves for you to run east and west.
Sure.
Because of their team speed. You got to run right at them. If you don't run right at Clemson, you will have no running game, no play action whatsoever. And if they get the lead on you, that's Katie bar the door then.
It's interesting looking at what Clemson has left. In my mind, I'm very, very curious to see how they can spring forward if they do win this game, how they spring forward from that game into the game at Louisville, because that's going to be one that, in my mind, that I don't want to say it makes or breaks your season, but that turns your season from a great season into a potentially special season with what's left in the league.
Absolutely. And now South Carolina, Missouri, this could be a really fun game.
Oh, it's going to be, so many points.
I can't remember who among us said the Gamecocks have an offense that would average 35 points. Oh, that was me that said that the Gamecocks would have an offense that would average 35 points.
I don't think any of us disagreed with you.
I think they're right on the number right now after one game.
No,
you didn't. John Mark, get out.
They're not.
You did not.
They're not on the number.
They're averaging. Yes, they get the points for the kickoff team.
That's what I'm saying. I know.
28.
No,
that counts. That counts on the offense.
7 points on special teams. That's interesting.
Counts on the offense. Counts against the defense.
Total offense.
So they're averaging 35 points per game. And you know what? They may come out of Missouri I mean,
averaging more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, it may take 42, 49 points.
Now, my question to you, does the winner of this game become the number one contender for Florida, Georgia, pick whoever? Does this become the number one challenger for the East Division after that?
Again, I think after this past week, we see that the East is wide open. I know that, Bulldog Bert said no, Georgia is still very good with the running game. Let's see how they do up at Notre Dame.
That's going to be
let's see how the freshman
than he thought he's going to.
Let's see how the freshman does as he handles the offense here for the next few weeks. And I know he's a touted guy and all that kind of stuff, but freshmen make freshman mistakes, and it makes a big difference in these big ball games.
Butch Jones notwithstanding, I like the look of Tennessee's medal. They could have folded it up because that option was killing them, and they were down by 2 touchdowns twice and came back.
I think again, Georgia Tech's got no one to blame but themselves. If they don't fumble, if they kick the field goals, they waltz to that victory. But let me say this, that's all part of the game. You have to credit the Tennessee defender for making a great play. You have to credit the Tennessee special teams for getting up and blocking the field goal.
Why didn't Tennessee
They deserve credit.
Why didn't Tennessee go to John Kelly a lot sooner? It seemed like that was open the entire day, and they just never went to it until late.
That guy is awesome. All right, as far as the rest of the state this week, let's take a look at the schedule. Elon will be at Furman. Boy, Furman and Wofford played a heck of a game Saturday. Congratulations to the Terriers. Presbyterian goes to the Citadel. Wofford opens SoCon play at Mercer. It will be Charleston Southern at South Carolina State. Boy, the Bulldogs lost a tough one.
Oh, boy. I mean, they had numerous chances in the fourth quarter, including a deep pass, receiver wide open, nobody in the area code, and he drops the football. And your defense holds Southern to 14 points on the road.
Yeah. Well, we know State's defense is going to be very good.
Yes.
Presbyterian plays, did I say this already, at Citadel?
Yes, you did.
Newberry at Virginia Union, trying to bounce back from that loss to the Citadel. Benedict at Limestone, and North Greenville, which opened with the victory, plays at Lenore-Rhine. That is your schedule coming up. We have to take a moment to say goodbye to Jared Rogers-Martin, his final show with us tonight on Sports Talk. Jar March, it's been a lot of fun, my man. We wish you well in your future endeavors.
Well, thank you, Corn. Thank you.
Do we?
Well, we do. Yeah, I don't wish anybody bad will when they leave here. At least not publicly. Now I do have a Jar-Mart doll that I'll be sticking pins in.
Voodoo.
Yeah.
Seriously, it just
good luck,
means
man.
that I was always there challenging you to be the best corn possible.
Challenge is right.
Think of all the corns that I've built on your cob.
Well, you're going into private business, correct?
Yeah, I'm going into private business, going to be doing more of the great internet and computer stuff. I just fixed Corn's
Yes, you did.
internet problem 2 seconds ago, so I'll be doing more of that in the future.
In other words, you're going to the dark side.
We do want to say publicly thank you so much for all your contributions over the past year plus with us here on Sports Talk, and we wish you well.
Oh, well, thank you guys, and I'll miss being here with you every night, so listeners should keep it coming because Sports Talk is going strong.
Absolutely. We're surviving. We are surviving.
We're thriving. Corn.
Thriving, surviving, conniving, and diving. And not hiving.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Stop while you're here.
I think your adjectives have run out.
Yes, and we're welcoming here, working with us now. We have a young man named Stockton. Don't tell me. Wait a minute. It usually takes me 3 days. I'm trying to do this in 2. Stockton. He's one of these guys with 2 first names or 2 last names.
It's Burke, I believe.
Stockton Burke. Is that right,
That's right.
Stockton?
Yep.
Well, good to have you with us.
And also for Gamecock fans tonight, if you're interested, I guess
George
the SEC
Rogers.
Network at 9 o'clock tonight, King George.
Okay.
George Rogers documentary on SEC Nation. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Well, that'll do it for a Talking Tuesday. Thank you for being with us. We have enjoyed it. Tomorrow night, more getting you ready for the games ahead, plus
M&M
a
boys.
visit from the M&M boys. Yes, we'll find out from Corey how Christian is doing. And, of course, Will Merritt will be Will Merritt, and that should be a lot of fun as well. Thank you, Will, and thank you, Pro. Good luck, Jar March, and thank you, Stockton. Good night, everybody.
Stockton to Malone.